I'm Buster Olney, working from my home in Montana, where we had a foot of snow today. I didn't know if we're going to be able to tape the top of this show. Taylor Schwenk is back in sunny Northeast Connecticut, or in sunny Northeast and Connecticut, of course, being a part of that. Man, very different world. And during the wintertime, you're telling me all the time about how cold it was. It was chilly. You guys had all kinds of snow, and I've come back from L.A. after doing the Jackie Robinson day game, and we got snow. We got a foot of snow. What is going on?
Snow King. I'm glad you are able to claim your crown here, because you love to brag about having more snow than everyone else.
I do.
It's been a passion of yours since you were young, I know, and now here we are. It's April 16th. You have the snow crown, and I cede the floor to you. Go ahead and gloat. I know you do.
I love it too. Yeah, and also we need it out here. Like, I started to prepare the garden last week, and so to get some precipitation here, this is perfect. We have a great show today. So Sal Stewart of the Cincinnati Reds joined us, and man, Taylor, you back me up here. He's got some energy. We did the interview earlier this week. That was before Thursday's bench clearing thing with Sal. That was before his 2 home runs on Wednesday night. He's someone that you're just like, man, fans are going to love this guy.
He loved you, Buster. That was my biggest takeaway. He was so excited to sit down with you. I mean, we've had a week of great interviews here. Chandler Simpson was awesome, and Sal Stewart, he was amazing. I mean, the energy brought, he loved that you related the story of him, from when he was younger, being in a basketball gym with his dad. I can't wait for listeners to get a hold of this.
And we also are going to be speaking with Todd Radom, our graphic artist, the Todd father. We asked him about all these new city connects, asked him to give a rating from on a scale of 1 to 10. And man,
harsh, dude.
Todd is a hard grader. He was, he's the nicest person ever, but if he were a professor, like if you're getting a B, you're feeling good based on the grades we got from Todd on the City Connects.
His top reviewed uniform, I was shocked at how low the number was. It was a little bit of I don't know how to describe it. I mean, so we don't really even know what his favorite was. I don't get the sense he really likes them at all.
Yeah, he landed on one. He landed on one at the end. But I would say this: he's so detailed. He has such an eye for this stuff, and this is what he's done for his entire adult life. And so he sees things that I don't see. I was absolutely fascinated with some of his observations. But first, today we start with Paul Bikides, of course, a content producer on the show Get Up. Hembo, how you doing?
Buster, I'm doing well. As I look at my iPhone at the moment here in North Jersey, 87 degrees and humid. I took a run this afternoon. I felt like I was going through sludge in the dog days. So I can't relate much to the fact that you came home from LA with a foot of snow back in your place. God bless you.
It's melting on the top of my car in the garage. Right? I mean, that's how much snow was piled in when I got off the plane. As I mentioned, I'm coming back from LA, where I saw Shohei Ohtani pitch on Wednesday night, and my perspective on him as a pitcher it didn't completely change. I knew he was talented. I knew he had a lot of weapons, but Hembo, that was impressive.
I mean, it's as impressive a thing as you could ever imagine. I mean, it's the kind of thing where on one hand you're stunned, and on the other hand, you're not surprised because he's him. And Buster, I wanted to refresh my memory, because there was a time at which if you had said Shohei Ohtani is going to be the best pitcher in his league, that would have been likelier than you saying that Shohei Ohtani was going to be the best hitter in his league. And that's because I went back to a December 2017 piece on ESPN.com that you wrote, in which you detailed some sort of scouting skepticism that Shohei Ohtani could be an everyday big leaguer from the perspective of his bat, because there was so much swing and miss.
Yeah, Hembo, I remember writing that. At that time, there was a lot of skepticism among scouts whether or not that he was going to be able to hit enough to be a two-way player. They didn't have that many doubts about him as a pitcher, but as a hitter, absolutely yes. We heard Albert Pujols last week on the podcast talking about the adjustments that Ohtani makes, and he's still making adjustments as a pitcher.
Goodness, that's so wild to consider, especially knowing now what we know now, Buster. If you go back to 2018, his first year in the major leagues, and you said a 100 start minimum on the mound, among 123 pitchers, he ranks second in ERA plus at 146, behind only Jacob deGrom. Over that same time frame, it's the fourth best batting line as a hitter, behind Aaron Judge and Mike Trout. and Yordan Alvarez. It's an OPS plus of 160. It was Bill James, Buster, who once quite famously said of Ricky Henderson, if you could split him in two, you'd have two Hall of Famers. In the case of Shohei Ohtani, it does actually apply. It actually is a Hall of Fame bat. It actually is a Hall of Fame arm. And even though it's only 546 innings for his career to date, which is less than half of what Babe Ruth produced, on a pitch-for-pitch basis and inning-for-inning basis, he is far and away a better pitcher than Babe Ruth was, albeit aside from really the 1918 season. And as you well know, what really sets Ohtani apart from the Babe is the fact that Babe Ruth never did this concurrently. It was Babe Ruth who more than a century ago said, no, this is actually impossible. Well, as it turns out, it really was, until Shohei Ohtani came along, who's doing things on a daily basis, on an every fifth day basis, that makes us question everything that we ever knew about this great game. I walked away from his start on Jackie Robinson Day saying, this guy might well be the front runner for the National League Cy Young Award, which of course is something that we thought about a couple of months ago as being basically impossible.
Basically impossible because of the lack of volume. Yeah, Joe Buck last night during the broadcast made the point that you did as well about Babe Ruth, and it's not close. That's why when we had Chris Russo on last week and he was saying Babe Ruth's better, and I'm like, look, I get it. Babe Ruth was incredibly important to the sport for what he did at the time that he did it, but in terms of what they're doing right now, it's not close. It's just not close. What stood out to me being, my position was right next to the field. I'm next to the Dodger dugout. Talk to some members of the coaching staff, in between innings, that sort of thing. That's how close I get to be. And what stood out to me during that game was, and we knew he was a great athlete, but to watch the way that he was varying his delivery and changing the pace of it and messing with the heads of hitters like Francisco Lindor. He had that play where the ball's hit back to the mound and he outruns the guy to first base. And and the ability to maintain, and we talked about this before, the command of all of these different pitches to the point he's going 72 curveball, 100 mile per hour fastball. That's nuts.
It's completely absurd, Buster. It's the kind of thing that you don't see from literally any starting pitcher, let alone one with a 160 career OPS plus, whom I firmly believe if they decided he wanted to be a Gold Glove right fielder or Gold Glove first baseman, he could do it because he has the kind of coordination, the kind of aptitude, and some of the best athletic ability in the way that he moves his body, as well as the game has ever known. I mean, the level of athleticism required to do any one of these things is off the charts. No one has ever done all of them, and no one ever will do all of them. All I like to do is sit here back and enjoy it, of course, because we'll never see it again. Of that, I'm certain.
I tell you this, like you put him at first base, he would be phenomenal. And I'll one up that, and I'll say, you put him at third base, like the Yankees did with Don Mattingly, right? Back in the 1980, he would be phenomenal. I don't doubt that he could do anything he set his mind to. That's for sure. The Mets, what do you make of them?
Let's call balls and strikes, Buster. I mean, David Stearns was given the opportunity this winter to remake this club in his image, and he did so largely majoring in run prevention. And in fairness, the team has played considerably better defense, but that was never my question. The question was, how much will that matter? And I already knew the answer to that question. Defense doesn't drive winning in the major leagues. It merely supplements your pitching. And I think what we've seen so far, Buster, albeit in only 10% of the season, has to be extraordinarily, at minimum, discouraging for Mets fans who, as you well know, were super discouraged after the way that last season ended, completely collapsing in a way that basically no team ever had before. Let's go to the new people that David Stearns identified as being this next wave of Mets baseball. Bichette, Semien, Luis Robert, Jorge Polanco, and of course, his aggressive promotion of Carson Bench. Those five players, accounting for 49% of the team's plate appearances, are slashing 201, 278, 288. Half their lineup, Buster, all of which are new guys, are completely unplayable at this point. I'm not remotely worried about Bo Bichette. I think he's going to hit so long as Ania is okay. But Marcus Semien, someone with diminishing skills as a hitter, as you know. Luis Robert right now isn't slugging at all, and I'm at minimum skeptical that he's a player that's going to hit at a high level based on his inability to hit righties historically. They assigned Jorge Polanco to play a position he never had, coming off the best season of his career, which is not a David Stearnsy kind of thing. And perhaps most egregiously, their promotion of Carson Bench, let's face it, was just far too aggressive. Maybe they wouldn't have done it if Mike Tauchman hadn't gotten hurt in the spring. But this is a guy that had a 583 OPS in 32 AAA games, and they promoted him like he was Kevin McGonigal. He is simply not that. Look, I'll land the plane by saying this, Buster. You know that I firmly believe that their offseason internally was defined by whiffing on Kyle Tucker. There is no way you can convince me that they would have signed Polanco or traded for Marcus Semien had Bo Bichette been their plan all along. Because right now, they could really use a guy like, I don't know, Brandon Nimmo. They're certainly missing that. And there's just no excuse, even without Juan Soto, for a team with a $382 million payroll to not be able to scratch across 4 runs a game. It's completely inexcusable. And you can small sample size me to death, but this team is 22 games under 500 across their last 112 games. That's not a small sample size. This is a pattern of behavior now with 2 different cast of characters. It's certainly too early to panic, but if you're a Mets fan calling in WFAN and getting dumped because your mother bleeping on the radio, I can understand it, Buster, because it's been a long time coming, dating back to June of last season.
Just don't blame Carlos Mendoza, which I find to be the silliest part of the conversation whenever this happens. And you're like, he's got a bunch of professionals with, crooked numbers in the back of the baseball cards. What else is he going to do than just run the same guys out there? He's going to run Bichette out there and Lindor out there and Polanco when he's healthy, and just hope that the results turn different. Other than that, I don't know what else he can do. All right. You mentioned Ohtani and the Cy Young Award. It's really interesting because, I've gotten the question many times about Ohtani. Could he win the Cy Young Award? And of course, I talk about volume, right? And how many innings. And if Christopher Sanchez goes 190 innings and Shohei's going 150, he's at a disadvantage. Well, Mason Miller, also a question of volume. A reliever has not won this award in more than 2 decades, but if someone's going to have a chance, it might be this guy.
Lord. Buster, I'm prepared to answer your question as to whether or not he could or should win the Cy Young Award, but not before I just spout off some of my favorite Mason Miller stats, which are just too good to be true. I'll start with OPS plus, a number for which 125, as you know, from a hitter is good, 75 is bad, and 100 is average. Mason Miller has pitched in 30 games since the Padres traded for him in July of last year. He has permitted an OPS plus since he arrived of -19. That is the statistic that should not have a negative value. He has broken the statistic. If you look at the batting line that he's allowed since he got there, it is almost equivalent to what hitters slashed in 2020, what pitchers slashed in 2021, the year before the universal DH. He has turned your lineup into 9 pitchers. And that's how dominant he has been. All right, next, we got to talk strikeouts. He's made 8 appearances. He has struck out the side in 5 of his 8 appearances, Buster. There is no pitcher, starter or reliever this season that has struck out the side more than 3 times. That puts him on a pace for an unsustainable 45. The record, if you're wondering, is 43. That was Randy Johnson in 2001. The record for a reliever is only 21. That was Josh Hader in 2018. Buster, that is going down. And lastly, we've got to talk about this arsenal. There are more than 1,200 instances in which a pitcher has thrown at least 25 pitches, an individual pitch, 25 times this season. Mason Miller's swing and miss rate on his slider ranks first at 79%. Opponents have swung on 29 of his sliders and whiffed on 23 of them. Let's talk four-seam fastball. It's sitting at 101.4 with 17 inches of carry. Buster, in the history of the pitch tracking era, which goes back nearly 20 years, no one has ever matched those specs. He's thrown 47 fastballs. None of them have been touched by an outfielder. It's not hyperbole to say that right now, he is in the midst of one of the great stretches in the history of pitching when considering what he did the back half of last year. And if he continues at this pace, you best believe that he and Shohei Ohtani are going to be jockeying with potentially some other guys for that hotly contested National League Cy Young Award.
Yeah, I got a text the other day from Buck Showalter, and he was just talking about Mason Miller, and just like, are you seeing what this guy's doing? Are you seeing what he's doing? I mean, he has been remarkable. All right, and lastly, we're about ready to talk to Sal Stewart. Or you listeners, viewers are going to see this interview coming up. What do you got on Sal Stewart?
Buster, I watched every plate appearance of Sal Stewart's young season to be able to thoroughly provide you this context on why I think he's just taking the league by storm. Quite simply, he is generating power to the big part of the field in an almost unprecedented way. It's 7 homers, 11 extra base hits across his first 19 games. Across all qualified hitters in baseball, he ranks 5th in slug. Again, 5th in slug. That's 186 qualified hitters. And among them, he ranks 183rd in the percentage of balls that he puts into play to his pull side. He only pulls the baseball with 23% frequency. That is remarkable. I added up all of his total bases, of which he has 45. Only 8 of those 45 have come to his pull side. He has 22 to the opposite field, which of course leads the major league. Now, you might say, why is that so instructive? Well, the answer, as you know, Buster, is that he does not have to cheat to tap into his power, and he doesn't swing and miss, which is really what has surprised me the most about Sal Stewart, someone who you know I have loved dating back to spring training. But I'm surprised by how good the plate skills are. It's an 858 OPS with 2 strikes. He has only 2 more strikeouts than he has walks. But I will say this, Buster, I will say this. I can guarantee you from right now, you're going to see the league adjust and pound him in. If you look at that heat map, he does so much damage when he gets the chance to extend his arms and drive the baseball to the opposite field on the outer half of the plate. I'm excited to see what Sal Stewart does in July, coming off a 2 for 20 stretch in which he's worn a couple off the ribs, in which they're pounding him hard in and trying to ask him to beat the fastball to the spot in the inner half of the plate. My money is on him being able to make that adjustment because I think the hit ability is so rare, the hand-eye is so good, and the angles are excellent. But you best believe that adjustment is coming because pitchers are not going to be happy with him walking an 1,100 OPS out there and murdering pitches on the outer half over the right center field wall.
So if you watched every plate appearance and you saw the home run that he hit in Miami, which went to right center field, okay, in his big ballpark, and I was thinking about this when I saw that, when Aaron Judge did the home run derby, and it's not apples to apples, and I understand that, but the next day, the National League was taking batting practice, and Joey Votto was by the cage. He just looks at me, and he's motioning toward the expanse of right center field in that ballpark. It's huge, okay? And he was like, people don't realize how hard that is to do for a hitter, right-handed hitter, to take the ball out that way. And to see a rookie do it for the Reds, it's crazy. And as we talked about at the top of the show, you talk about energy. Like I mean, he's already become one of my favorite players to talk to.
Oh, dude, he's the future mayor of Cincinnati, Todd Frazier. Move aside.
Well, what is it about Cincinnati? They had Sean Casey, you had Todd Frazier. Now you got Sal Stewart, who's a great heir apparent to that legacy.
Right. They're going to love him there, man. That guy can hit with his eyes closed.
All right, Hembo, thanks for doing this.
Later, friends.
Sal Stewart is the first baseman of the Cincinnati Reds. Sal, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. So last week when I reached out to the Reds about getting you on the podcast, what I got from Larry, it was, yeah, Miami's not a good place to do it. Because when he's in Miami, like he's going to have things to do. And man, I was watching that game when all those kids from the high school team, where you went to, kids who played at the same high school you did, were there. You hit a monster home run to right center field. I mean, you charged that thing. What did it sound like with those kids? Because they erupted. And could you hear them as you're going around the bases?
I told Larry, I was like, hey, Larry, look, man, I'll do it anywhere but Miami, man. Count me out. I can't do it in Miami. I'm home. So, man, it was great. All 4 days, man, it was really like if I could say it was like a movie, you know, like it was perfect 4 days being with my family, my friends, you know. It's what I dream of, you know. Everyone knows I wear Miami on my sleeve, man. I get chills talking about it. Miami's where I grew up. It's where I'm from. It's who I am. So, just having my family there, and then on Sunday, I didn't even know the baseball team was coming out until like the day.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, oh damn, that's pretty cool. You know, honestly, you could tell like if you're a good person by like if people come back and want to watch you play and want to be there for you, and like it means a lot to me knowing that these kids want to come back and watch me play. You know, so. I mean, shoot, I was in high school 5 years ago, and they still want to come back and watch me play. So it meant a lot to me and my family, and I'm glad I can be that role model for them.
So could you hear them like literally cheering as you're, you know, you reach first base and you're rounding towards second? Because on the broadcast I was watching, it was, of course, Miami. It's a big ballpark. We saw it during the WBC, and you had all of a sudden these absolute screeches coming from the stands. I'm guessing you heard it.
Man, to be honest with you, they always ask me, like, hey, do you hear us cheering? Like, my mom and my dad. My mom and my dad, like, my girlfriend, hey, you hear me screaming? I'm like, nah, like, when I'm playing, like, I get so focused. Honestly, I hit that and I kind of blacked out. So I didn't hear anything, but looking back on the video and stuff, it was really cool, you know? So, man, Jesus, look at what he does in my life, man. Like, if you want a way to just see what he's done, just look at my life. He's changed my life in every way possible, and I wouldn't be here without him. And I mean, he's the king, so I want to glorify him.
Yeah, my colleague Eduardo Perez, who I'm guessing you met, he was there, and he was texting me what a cool scene it was.
Yeah.
Speaking of how you got to this place, it's been fun reading up on your dad, and hearing about his influence on you. In fact, in spring training, I heard that you guys had a free throw shooting contest, right? And you wound up winning that thing because of your basketball background. Your dad's a basketball coach, right? Yep. And you were a baller in high school. And so tell me, about that, about winning that contest, and how did they structure that, and how many rounds did you wind up going through?
Yeah, so pretty much just a little backstory. When I was little, man, it was always my dad was always on top of me, and I'd go run to my mom and be like, "Mom, man, Dad doesn't let me breathe, whatever." Man, both my parents, man, they're so amazing. And when I was little, ever since I was little, my dad was a basketball coach. He'd take me to his high school basketball practices, and they make me shoot free throws. And if I would miss, the team would run, and they make me sit in the middle.
Oh my God, pressure!
Yep, and they make me sit in the middle of the court and watch them run back and forth until they throw up. And I'd sit in the middle, and they make me watch that. So ever since I was little, I grew up with pressure. My dad was always like, "Hey, we're not going to fold under pressure. When the pressure's there, we want to rise." So ever since I was little, they've always tried to put me in pressure situations, and I feel like it helped me. So when I was shooting in that basketball contest, man, it was a long thing, and man, no one wanted me to win. Everyone was hating on me, so they were mixing the brackets up so they would give me the hardest competition. And when I won the thing, everyone started booing me. I'm like, that's when I know I won. That's when I know everyone didn't want me to win. So it was awesome, man, doing it with the guys. More than anything, it was cool just to hang out with the guys and do that with them. So it was pretty sick, pretty cool.
So the stories I read about you as a little kid, you sound like a bowling ball. Like you were going off the bleachers and you're breaking your nose or something like that. And it's because you're just following your dad around, right?
Yep. Damn, you did your research. Yeah, when I was little, man, I went to a basketball game and I was just running around being a kid, and I was running through the bleachers. My dad told me don't do it, and I still did it. And I fell off the bleachers and face planted and broke my nose, right? And my dad, the first thing he said was, "I told you not to do it." And I was like, I gotta start listening to my dad more often. So he took me to the hospital. We fixed it all out. And man, those are just great memories, Like, obviously it sounds crazy, like, man, this little kid broke his nose, but like, man, I wouldn't change that for the world. I loved running around the basketball gym, and anytime I have something on my mind, I actually go to the basketball court and I shoot, and it makes me feel free. So I love basketball, and man, when I'm done playing, hopefully in 25 years, however long I play, I want to be a college basketball coach.
Really?
Yep, that's really what
basketball, not baseball.
Yep, I want to be a college basketball coach, and I want to coach a university, and hopefully when I'm 45 and I'm Hall of Famer, go Jack, and all that good stuff. But yeah, that's what I want to do.
So in my time covering baseball, which goes like a long time ago, man, when you meet the sons of coaches, there's something different because of the messages that you guys take away on a regular basis. What are some of those that you took away from your dad?
Yeah, man, like as the son of a coach and as the son of a wife's of a wife who is a coach, you understand what I'm saying? And
yeah,
I mean, they kind of just tell you like it's no nonsense. Every coach has its ways, but my dad was always on top of me, man. And my mom too. Like, even though I'd run to her, she'd be like, "Yeah, I told you, listen to your dad," So I mean, as a coach, they're always on top of you. They always are focused on the little things, always making sure I'm working, I'm doing my stuff. And my dad was always of the mindset of, look, I'm never going to tell you got to work. Never. You'll never hear that from me. If you tell me you want to work, then we'll go train. But he was never pushing it onto me. And I feel like as a coach, that's such good values, like as a coach, you don't want players, you don't want to have to force players to play for you. You want your players to be like, hey, I want to get better. So I feel like my dad did that. He never said, "Hey, let's go to the field." Never, not once. He was always like, "You want to, we'll do it." And I always was like, "I want to be great. I want to do this for a living. I want to take care of my family." So I feel like that was such a great dynamic in between my family.
I love watching you play. I had a conversation the other day with Jeff Brantley, the Reds broadcaster, and for Jeff Brantley to compare you to Will Clark, okay, which is what he did in our conversation. Man, that is about as high a praise as you're going to get from the Cowboy, given the fact that those guys were at Mississippi State together. He talked about, and when he first said it, I was wondering if it was about personality, but I think it's much more about approach and about thinking through an at-bat and changing your approach according to the game situation or what the pitcher's trying to do.
Yep.
Tell me about hitting and what your focus, your preparation is. You're getting ready for each at-bat and how you adapt according to what you're seeing from the pitcher.
Yeah, man, I appreciate Jeff, man. You know, that as a young kid, having somebody believe in you like that, I mean, it doesn't go unnoticed for sure. And like he says, man, I use the game. I look up at the scoreboard, and the scoreboard tells me how I have to approach each situation, each at bat. You know, I try to have as many clubs in my golf bag. I say it all the time. You know, I have my long drive, maybe where we're up 4 or 5, maybe I can go take my shot. I got my pitching wedge, maybe where I just got to hit a sack fly, get the run in. I got my 7-iron where maybe I'm looking to just hit a low line drive to the gap. So I want to have as many tools in my bag where I can go up there in any situation I can help my team win. At the end of the day, when you're in the batter's box, you got to help the team win any chance you get. Whether that's a ground ball to second, no outs in the 8th inning, we're down by 1. Maybe in that situation, my team doesn't need me to hit a home run or a double. Maybe my team just needs me to get my job done, you know? So I try to always have as many tools in my toolbox and however many clubs I need in my golf bag, like I said. And that I feel like that just gives my team the best chance to win. And the same goes with taking my walks. Maybe that day, maybe that at bat tells me, hey, you know what? Right now, they feel like they're gonna go after somebody else. Man, I got Eugenio Suarez hitting behind me. He's gonna hit 500 home runs in his career. Like I don't need to be the savior. I'll take my walk, and then now it'll be a 2-run home run or a 3-run home run. So you know, I always try to let the scoreboard and the game dictate how I approach each at bat.
So I wanted to ask you about your confidence because I'm working off perception watching you on television.
Mhm.
The most confident player that I ever covered was Derek Jeter, who knew he was going to kick your ass, right? And other great players don't quite have that degree of confidence. Where would you put yourself on that spectrum? Because my guess is you're pretty close to where Derek is. Like you feel good about your chances to prevail.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, that's why Derek Jeter's Derek Jeter. You know, we still talk about
Yeah.
it today. And you know, some people like to do it like internalize it, and that's that. I mean, there's a lot of great players, and all great players, you need to feel like you have ultimate preparation, ultimate like confidence in yourself. But for me personally, I train so hard in the off season. I put myself in positions that I know I give myself the best chance. You know, baseball is probability. What's the probability that you're going to succeed? The more I train, the more I give myself the best chance to win. The more I do my research on the pitchers, the more I get my body prepared. That fuels me confidence. You know, when you go into, for example, when you go take a test in school, if you don't study, man, you're not confident. You're like, man, I'm praying I just pass. But if you studied and you did your stuff and you were looking at all your notes and your books like that, you go into that test, you're ready to go. Maybe it doesn't go your way, but you knew that you were confident because you prepared in the way that you needed to. So that's the same thing as baseball, you know. I'm in the cage, I'm doing my preparation, I'm studying the pitcher, and I'm confident. I know what I can do, man. I'm confident. I mean, why would I ever be scared if Jesus gave me all these tools that I can go out there and succeed? So that's where my confidence comes from. Um, man, Jesus, man, he really, really, really blesses my life in so many ways.
Nick Kroll told me that they talked to you about being in better condition coming into this year, being more athletic coming into this year, and you dropped 22 pounds the offseason. So tip of the cap to you for that. Last one for you. Tell me what pitcher on another team that you would love to face so far. In terms of the challenge and you can feel the mental game going back and forth with them.
Yeah. Let me think.
Or I'll give you another one too. If you want a hitter that you love to watch on another team, that you
I,
draw something from them.
I could give you both. I think Crochet was a really good at bat, you know, because he's a smart guy. You know, his pitches are he's Crochet. I mean, he's gonna be Cy Young or he will be Cy Young. Um, yeah, it was a nice cat and mouse game. You know, you always play cat and mouse game, like, and that's what people don't understand. Baseball's really just chess. You're playing chess, but in baseball, you know, you have to always try to be a step ahead of the other team, whoever's calling pitches, you know, whatever the pitcher wants to do. So, and I love watching Bo Bichette. Love watching Bo Bichette. The way he's just so consistent in the box. You know, he hits for power. He hits for average. He's always a tough out. I love watching Bo Bichette.
Sal, thanks so much for your time. It was fun talking with you.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Alden Gonzalez covers baseball for ESPN, and that meant being at Dodger Stadium on Wednesday night for Jackie Robinson Day. Alden, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Buster. Just coming off a great week of baseball. 3 great games at Dodger Stadium. Dodgers doing great.
Wait.
I can't
3
say
great
so much
games.
about
What,
the Mets.
from whose perspective are you talking?
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
I'm a neutral observer. They were fun. If you're a Mets fan, and I've been exposed to Mets Twitter over the last few days, it is, I don't think it's ever a really fun place, but it is especially not a fun place these days.
No, exactly. We'll dive into that in just a second. But first off, let's talk about the Jackie Robinson Day festivities. What'd you think?
I mean, they do it every
It's the best
year.
day of the year.
Yeah, and it never gets old. And, just both teams gathering around the Jackie Robinson statue and hearing from a guest speaker this year, obviously, as you know, is Bob Kendrick, the president of the Negro League Museum in Kansas City. And I think, and Mookie Betts actually talked about this on our Baseball Tonight leading up to the game, about how he wasn't truly exposed to Jackie Robinson, didn't really learn about him until he became a Dodger. And every year on April 15th, the baseball world, I think, centers on Dodger Stadium. And everybody celebrates Jackie Robinson Day. Everybody wears number 42. But Dodger Stadium is where it's at. That's the franchise, obviously, where he started. It's the organization that paved the way for him to, obviously, they were in Brooklyn at the time, but to pave the way for him to break the color barrier and change the course of American history. And listening to Bob Kendrick this year talk about how Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier 79 years ago, it triggered the civil rights movement. Like, this was bigger than baseball, but it was baseball that was at the center of such a major societal shift. And it's so cool for modern day players who live in a different time because Jackie Robinson blazed that trail to understand just how difficult it was to be him back then. Dave Roberts talked about that, about, everybody, he told the players, everybody here loves baseball, but do you love baseball enough to suffer the amount of hate that Jackie Robinson had to endure in order to play the game that he loved? And, every year players are exposed to this, especially on the Dodgers, and every year I think they come away learning something and gaining something.
So I had a couple stories from the last 2 days, which were really cool related to this. First off, on Tuesday, I was there and preparing for the broadcast on Wednesday, talk to you, talk to others. And I'm waiting for, to talk to a couple of the Mets. And I see Manny Mota, who's 88 years old now. Yeah. For a long time, he was the most prolific pinch hitter in baseball. He was someone I rooted for growing up as a kid and growing up as a Dodger fan. And he's standing on the edge of the field, and I'm coming off, and I said, Manny, let me ask you, did you ever get a chance to meet Jackie? And his eyes just lit up. And he said, yeah, I did. He said the day they retired his number here in Dodger Stadium, which was June 4th, 1972, was about 5 or 4 months before Jackie passed away. They retired the numbers all on the same day of Sandy Koufax and Roy Campanella and Jackie Robinson. And here's Manny Mota at 88 years old, and he looks at me, and his eyes are welling up a little bit. He goes, he was my hero. And getting a chance to talk to him and meet him, that will stick with me. And I just want to wrap up a story, and I told you about this yesterday, Alden, but on Monday we had Eduardo on the podcast, and I asked him about Jackie Robinson, and I had thought about that there was a good chance that Eduardo was in person for Game 2 of the World Series in 1972 when Jackie made his last public appearance, October 15th, 1972. And Eduardo was 3 years old. His dad was playing in that World Series, and he said on Monday, yeah, I'm pretty sure I was there. Like, it's a baseball family, so you figure he's going to be there. Well, we're at breakfast on Wednesday morning, and he calls his mom, and he's like, I'm going to settle this right now. And he calls his mom, and his mom said, yeah, they brought Jackie in a wheelchair, and he was rolling by, and he stopped, and he greeted. He put his hand on Eduardo's arm and said something along the lines of, what a nice little kid. And that's what his mom related to him. And Eduardo never heard that before. And that was so cool. I got a chance. I told Bob Kendrick that story before the game last night. He was so fired up. So it was that's one of the stories that, and to hear that, overhear Eduardo talking to his mom gave me goosebumps.
That's so cool, Buster. And you know what? And shout out to Doug Lanville too, because I love the essay that he penned. Such a great piece to add to Jackie Robinson Day.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right. On the field, Shohei Ohtani, good Lord.
Yeah.
I mean, that was unbelievable last night. You know, for the first time this year, he's not serving as DH. Dave Roberts telling us that, you know, because he was hitting the scapula, they didn't want to worry about managing him physically and just go and pitch. And he talked to Ohtani about that during the game on Monday, and Ohtani's kind of like, yeah, sure. Yeah, that sounds good. And he was phenomenal. High-end fastball at 100 miles an hour, low-end breaking ball at 72. So 28 miles per hour and variance. And on top of that, and this was the fun part, he also was varying his delivery like he was playing backyard wiffle ball with a sibling. And he had this long extended about, 11, 12 pitches with Francisco Lindor.
Lindor,
And it wraps up with him basically doing a slide step at the end and changing his delivery. And Lindor kind of feebly waves at it as it goes by. And then he just looks at Ohtani and just has the biggest grin. Like, are you kidding me? He was amazing.
Yeah, and it's fun to see him at this stage now, fully recovered from that second UCL repair, where like it's very clear that he's got command now of so many pitches that he didn't have before last year, particularly the breaking balls. And from start to start, it's fun to see which pitch is he going to feature, because he's got 6 or 7 pitches that he could command on any given day. And a lot of times he'll steer away from the game plan because of how he's feeling about a particular pitch. And last night, he rode his fastball more than he had all year. And it was really fun to watch because first time through the order, he was heavy fastball with all these guys. And then second time through, you see him incorporating the splitter, incorporating the sweeper, the curveball, starts mixing up speeds. He only needed the fastball to get to the lineup the first time. And then the fun part too was MJ Melendez hits that ground rule double. It's the first earned run charged to Shohei Ohtani this year. And clearly he got mad because his 4 fastest pitches came right after that. 4 fastballs, all exceeding 100 miles an hour to retire Tommy Pham and Francisco Lindor. And look, we've talked about this. This has been a theme for the last few weeks. Shohei Ohtani wants to win a Cy Young Award. No Japanese-born pitcher has ever won a Cy Young Award. Somebody else wants to win a Cy Young Award too, and his name is Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And I talked to Dave Roberts about this last night. I talked to Mark Pryor about this at spring training, about how those two guys are going to push each other this year. And you've seen this play out, Buster, a lot within rotations, the competition that takes place.
Yeah, Randy Johnson,
pitchers.
Kurt Schilling, Pedro Martinez, Kurt Schilling, et cetera. You know, find any combinations like that. No question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's going to be a theme for them this year, seeing how each of them could one-up each other.
And the Dodgers, good Lord. I mean, they are so good. I actually had someone in baseball say to me the other day, you know, I think they'll get bored and they won't win a record number of games in the regular season. And I understood this person's perspective, but I'm also like, yeah, but they're so great. And I think they're driven, every day the energy is driven by the starting pitcher, who inevitably or, invariably seems to be a really good starting pitcher. They have Blake Snell coming back. Last night, Shohei Ohtani's not the DH for the first time. Dalton Rushing goes in and drops a grand slam.
But Buster, the Dodgers are leading baseball in almost every major offensive category. They're doing that with Mookie Betts nursing an oblique injury. Kyle Tucker getting off to a really bad start. Shohei Ohtani hasn't gotten going until just very recently. Freddie Freeman's numbers aren't quite there, and yet they're doing this. Their 7, 8, 9 hitters have combined for 935 OPS. That's basically like, that's Juan Soto level OPS, okay?
From the bottom
And
third
it's
of your lineup.
the bottom third of their lineup. And it's, look, Andy Pages has been swinging it well all year, but one night it'll be Dalton Rushing, or it'll be Alex Freeland, or it'll be Hai-Sung Kim. And that's the thing about the Dodgers. That's what's scary about them. It's not just their stars. They have a lot of stars. It's their depth. That's what's scary. That's why they dominate regular seasons.
And lastly, the Mets. Good Lord. They look terrible. And I know they're missing Juan Soto. I've said this before that, it's a lot like when the Yankees lose Aaron Judge. That's how important Soto is to that lineup. But man, they look flat. And their offense absolutely stinks right now. And I got to say, and I mean, it's one game, so I'm not going to pick on individual players, but there were guys in that lineup last night that were like, man, they can't hit fastballs. Guys who are hard throwers. And it kind of took my breath away just sitting next to the field and watching that and thinking, I don't know. I know it's going to get better when Soto comes back. I know it's going to get better when the weather warms up, but these struggles are real.
Yeah, look, it's easy to be an optimist in the sense of, like you said, Juan Soto should be back before the end of the month. Jorge
He's coming back probably next Tuesday, based on what we heard yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, he can't come back soon enough. Jorge Polanco's, he's dealing with an Achilles injury, and until he gets healthier, when he gets healthier, he'll be better. Bo Bichette, Lindor, those guys are going to hit. Okay, so you could take that side, but on the other side, I wonder how much patience Steve Cohen is going to have with Carlos Mendoza, his manager. Okay, because it is not just the struggles of these first 3 or so weeks. It is those struggles coupled with the collapse of the last 2 months of last year, where the Mets clearly were not in the right frame of mind. Okay, coming off an offseason in which his entire coaching staff was replenished. And you know this, Buster, when you change a manager's coaching staff, the next person on the chopping block is the manager. And I talked at the start of this segment about how I've been on Mets Twitter over these last few days. Nobody's on Mets Twitter more than Steve Cohen. Okay? And he's hearing from Mets fans, and he's tweeting at them occasionally, and he spent a lot of money, as we know, on this roster, and they are in last place in the National League East, and it doesn't seem like it's getting any better. Okay? So I wonder how much more runway Carlos Mendoza has, which is pretty crazy because it was only 2 years ago that we were celebrating this man as such a good up-and-coming manager. But I know it's only April, but Steve Cohen is not a patient person, nor should he be, because of the amount of money that he is spending on this roster.
Yeah, and I think the best line on all this I heard the other day was Chris Rose, a broadcaster. I was talking with him a couple days ago, and he just looked at me and goes, they're not losing because of play calling. He's seeing the same thing we are.
Yeah.
Like, you got veteran players that they're paying a lot of money to who are not playing well. And, I just, gave a hello to Jorge Polanco the other day. That, to me, is a troublesome situation. To be in April with a veteran player with a history of injuries, and some days he can't move because of the Achilles. It screams of an injury that's going to hang there all year. And that is a big problem because they really need him to be one of their top 5 hitters.
Yeah, because they also don't have, we talked about the Dodgers' depth. The Mets don't have that. I mean, I think we saw that in Wednesday's series finale where Soto's still not there and they need to give Polanco a day off because he's struggling and he's hurt. And look at the lineup that they roll out. It's just not a good lineup. You have Brett Beatty, no disrespect to him, but Brett Beatty's batting third. You spend that much money and that's the lineup that you roll out when you suffer a couple of injuries. Like, that's just not, that's not a good situation.
Alden, thanks for doing this.
You got it, Buster.
Sarah Langs is a reporter, producer for MLB.com, and every week she has the numbers game.
Number 3.
Jose Soriano is the first pitcher since at least 1900 to throw at least 25 innings in his first 4 appearances of a season, while allowing fewer than 10 hits and 1 or no runs. What will he do in his 5th start?
Number 2.
Through his 12th career start on Tuesday, Nolan McLean has 85 strikeouts and has allowed just 20 runs total. He's the 3rd pitcher since at least 1900 with at least 80 strikeouts and 20 or fewer runs allowed in his first 12 career appearances, joining Paul Skeens and Matt Harvey.
Number 1.
Monday night in the Bronx was the first time since at least 1900 that the top 4 active players in career home runs all played in the same game. That's Giancarlo Stanton, Mike Trout, Aaron Judge, and Paul Goldschmidt.
Todd Radom is the chief executive of our weekly quiz. He's a graphic artist whose work can be seen on ball fields all across America, all around the world, or you can go to his website, toddradom.com. Todd, how are you doing?
Buster, I am great. I am so happy, so glad to be back with you and the crew and all of our listeners. So the season is not new, but it feels like it's new to me.
And you've been working on a new book that we are going to see later this year.
That's exactly right. I have a copy in my hand, so I'm going to hold it up because it's all visual. The Ballpark and Beyond, an illustrated celebration of baseball's rich history, available for pre-order right now wherever books are sold. Publication date May 26th, and I am looking forward to signings and events and all kinds of stuff, but here it is.
We're going to dive into that in a future week, and we're also going to start the quiz in a future week. But for today, let's talk about the new City Connects. As you know, I'm a complete idiot when it comes to design, when it comes to color, being really badly colorblind. So I actually had a producer, Michael Epstein, who's a huge Orioles fan. He was like, hey, check out our City Connects. And I texted you and I said, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give their connects? And so it got me to thinking that this would be good to do with all 8 teams, all these 8 of the City Connects. So we'll run through these quickly, okay? And we'll start with the Orioles. What's your grade, scale of 1 to 10?
I think the Orioles are about a 6.5. I love the vast majority of what I'm looking at, but I've got a couple of nits to pick, Buster. This is like, I feel like Frank Costanza here. I'm not the only one to say this, but I see be more and I see the word s'more. And I don't know, and perhaps we need to ask Taylor, do people in Baltimore actually refer to Baltimore as be more? What about that?
Yes. People do refer to Baltimore as be more.
Okay.
Confirmed.
I am not a fan of the lettering. Adley Rushman's 5 is an upside down 2, but I got all that out of the way. I love the green. Green is part of Oriole Park at Camden Yards, has been for more than 30 years now. I love the nod to the 1890s Baltimore Orioles of the National League on the headwear. Love the little disc that calls out the home run discs out on Utah Street. I think it's pretty solid, and I think it's a vast improvement over City Connect Generation 1 for the Orioles.
The Atlanta Braves, 1 to 10.
I think the Braves are about a 7. They don't go higher because it's a safe approach. And Buster, maybe it's good that it's a safe approach. It's interesting to me. The 2 generations of City Connects for this club have embraced 2 distinct eras in the fairly recent history of the club. They're not looking back to the 1890s. They're looking at Hank Aaron, what they previously wore. And now they're looking toward the Dale Murphy, Biff Pocoroba, TBS era. And Buster, you and I and so many of our listeners know that the Braves being on that superstation was so influential in giving them a national footprint. They were beamed into every nook and cranny of North America, it seems. So this is a loving homage to that era. They've got the TBS call out on the sleeve patch. It's a safe approach, and the Braves have taken a pretty steady hand here.
Texas Rangers.
I think it's mid. I think it's mid is the word I've used. I give it about a 5. It looks like a college uniform. I'm not the only one to say that. I am lacking for the lack of color here. It kind of looks like a Alabama Crimson Tide jersey, perhaps. I don't know. I like some of the details that are in the pants trim and the sleeve trim, but they're really not very visible. I'm kind of yawning.
Cincinnati Reds.
Cincinnati has also taken a pretty safe approach here, and that's okay. And I give them a 7 because it's a pretty solid uniform. It's a lot of red. They've got red pants. I will say this, they are far more legible than Generation 1 of the City Connects. You can actually read the numbers on the back. Buster, it seems like an evolution of what the Reds look like, and that's okay. I think it's pretty good.
The City Royals.
Kansas City, I'm going to give a 6-2, and I take off 4 hard points for one reason. When you gradate what they call fuchsia, I'm going to call purple, into a nice sky blue. Yeah, you could do that with some of the subtle details here on the uniform trim. These very thin lines within the Royals R, which is pretty cool. And that's a call out to their very first visual identity, their first logo. But when you put that on a batting helmet or on catcher's gear, I'm not quite sure what we're looking at. It looks like an icy popsicle. I'm not quite sure. And I'm not a huge fan of the cap design, Buster. I think it could have, other people have pointed this out too. It looks like the Netherlands from the World Baseball Classic, but there's a lot of white space. I also am a little, I don't know, I'm scratching my head a little bit about the fact that the uniform number on the front of the uniform is dipped way, way, way below what's opposite it in a Royals logo. So, I'm going to have nits to pick. That's me. So I think it's okay, but could be better.
That's why we ask you. You're the Todd father. San Diego Padres.
San Diego Padres, I think, is a downgrade over what they were wearing. Buster, I am not one of these get off my lawn guys. Despite our advanced age, you and I kind of love the Padres in those vibrant colors. This is a little bit more tame. I don't know. I'm going to give it about I'll give it a 7, I would say, gun to my head. It feels like, there's some continuity from what they had before. It's certainly a call out to the Padres of your era out there, right?
Oh,
the
yes.
late 90s, Tony Gwynn, the off-white hats, bone and obsidian are the colors here, according to the club, if I'm not mistaken. The sleeve patch is kind of cool. The Day of the Dead theme, considering San Diego's proximity to Mexico and all of that, is pretty good. But I like the first set better. And City Connects have planned obsolescence attached.
Yeah, you texted me that when you said, so what do you think about the obsidian? And I'm like, man, I'm still struggling with black and white. Like, I have no idea what that actually means, okay? Milwaukee Brewers.
Do people in Wisconsin call Wisconsin Wisco? This is a question much like I just asked Taylor about
I've never
Baltimore.
heard it, but I can't say that I've spent a lot of time in Wisconsin.
It's not for me to say. I love Wisconsin, but I've never heard it either. I did, when this uniform dropped, I had a quick conversation with a friend of mine originally from there, and he saw the colors, especially looking at the back, and he said, it looks way too Mets. The orange and blue is kind of confusing. One thing in there that I really love, Buster, is the revived or revised Barrelman, the beer barrel dude on the sleeve. That is directly cribbed from the Milwaukee Brewers minor league era in the 1940s, the Bill Veeck team. And that original Barrelman was called August. Look him up. I think it's really cool. And they've done something different. The type is kind of uninspired. They're blue, at least. They kind of look like the Brewers. But, Wisco leaves me scratching my head.
And lastly, the Pittsburgh Pirates.
I'm yawning a little bit. There's nothing to hate about it, but there's nothing to really love. It's another black jersey for this team, which, I said to someone earlier today, Pittsburgh, a very unique city. I mean, every place has its own sense of place, but Pittsburgh, from a visual perspective, is one of the most unique landscapes in America, right? It's a really different kind of place. This looks like just another Pirates uniform. I don't see much in the way of the city. Yeah, you've got subtle call-outs to bridges and all that. Buster, give me an Andy Warhol homage. Give me an all-in, give me patterns, give me some color, give me the point, there are a lot of things that we can look at. There's nothing not to embrace about this, but it's kind of, I don't know, it could be better.
All right. So in summation, if I were looking for a gift to give you at Christmas time, which of the 8 jerseys would you take?
Probably Atlanta, but I don't know that would be received very well walking around the streets of Philadelphia with a Braves uniform. I do kind of like Cincinnati, like I said, and most of Be More I like. And now I won't see s'more as much as I did previously.
All right. Todd, thanks for doing this.
Good to see you, Buster. Thanks.
Alrighty, Buster. Bleacher tweets for a Friday. We're going to play our first ever voicemail here on the YouTube version of the podcast. So here is Jonathan in Oklahoma.
Hey, Buster and Taylor. This is Space Ghost from Oklahoma, lifelong Tigers fan. I just finished listening to the podcast with Chandler Simpson, And I know that Buster says that he's not a fan since 1988, but holy cow, he's clearly a fan of Chandler Simpson. I remember when he identified Chandler Simpson over a year ago at spring training and how excited he was. And that excitement really bore through in the interview in the podcast this week. Fun listening to hear Buster get so excited.
That's super nice. Yeah.
Very nice.
I mean, and I, people do ask me all the time, who do you root for? And I always say you root for good stuff to happen to good people, and you root for interesting things to happen. And yeah, so and Chandler, man, I have loved talking to him and getting to know him. So thank you for that voicemail.
He was awesome, Buster. It lined up perfectly, too. I mean, you were already excited about him, and then he had his big weekend against the Yankees. So the stars just aligned for you there. So really, really fun interview. After a great week of interviews here with Sal Stewart, David from Walton, Massachusetts writes he's hopping off the RMS Red Sox Titanic and pivoting to his National League team, the Cincinnati Reds. I was going to ask if you approve of David jumping ship, but I think with Sal Stewart being such a delight, it's a no-brainer.
Man, and so we talked to Sal Stewart earlier this week, and then he goes out on Wednesday and mashes 2 homers, drives in 6 more runs, and just affirms everything that he and I were discussing, right? I mean, Jeff Brantley,
Crazy.
tip of the cap where he's like, he's Will Clark, because that says a lot.
Very cool. Okay, last thing here. Chad in Salt Lake City doesn't want us to talk about the Angels. Please do not, just quietly ignore them. Chris in Fountain Valley, California, he wants you to talk about the Angels and wants to know if they have a shot at finishing around 500.
I don't think they'll finish 500, but Soriano is the way he's pitching early in the year is getting everyone's attention. I know you wonder if he's going to be a Cy Young candidate this year. It's great to see Trout back. Who was I talking to the other day? It was someone with another team who said, I think the Angels are like a top 10 offensive team. Like they look like they're going to score runs. So they're going to be better than I think we thought, but I think it'll be a struggle for them to stay at 500 because it's always comes down to the pitching.
Yeah.
No, Grayson Rodriguez, too. That didn't really work out for them either. So that's kind of a bummer.
He just started throwing again. I saw that the other day.
He did?
So he's trying to ramp back up. Yeah.
Okay. That would be awesome. He would be a big boost if he could find his form. All right. That's it for Bleacher Tweets. That's it for the week. What a great week of shows. We'll be back on Monday. Thanks for your hard work, Buster. Thanks for everyone who listened and wrote in and all of our guests. Really, really good time here on the Baseball Tonight podcast.
We had a great time. My thanks to you, Taylor, and to Mark Webster, and to Paul Embikides, and Alden Gonzalez, and Sarah Langs, and Todd Radom, and of course, to Sal Stewart. Thanks for listening. Stay safe.